Do you want to come and saunter with me as we go around the NBA? 30 teams. We look at injuries, projected returns. We actually look at some two-way player contract eligibilities and availabilities, and we look at Michael Bolton.
Thanks, Josh. It's Michael Bolton here, and it's time for another episode of the Locked On Fantasy Basketball Podcast. Let's get to it.
Let's get to it, indeed.
You are Locked On Fantasy, your daily NBA fantasy podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome to the Locked On Fantasy Basketball Podcast, brought to you by Basketball Monster. My name is Josh Lloyd, and bad hat, naughty sleeve. I'm also the lead fantasy analyst at basketballmonster.com, and you can find me on Blue Sky, joshloyd.bsky.social, on Twitter at redrock_bball, on TikTok at redrock_bball, and on Instagram at Locked On Fantasy Basketball. Thank you for making Locked On Fantasy Basketball your first listen every day. We are free. We're available on all platforms, so a thumb and a bang and a double and a comment and all of that stuff. Also, check out lockedondaily.com and find the best newsletter for your favorite NBA team. We are here. It is Terrence Howard's birthday, so in honor of that, we're going to be doing all of these shows for the rest of today using Terrence Howard's version of maths. So just be ready for that as we talk about stats and numbers. Let's get into actually talking about what we're going to talk about here in injuries. And we're at the point in the year where I'm not going to go through and say, hey, this guy's questionable for today, because that stuff updates every 5 seconds. We're going to look more at long-term injuries, some day-to-day things, and then where it's important, not every single two-way player, because I don't think you care that much about Daquan Plowden and his eligibilities. We're going to look at the guys who are important to know how many games they've got left. Let's do it right now. We'll start with the Atlanta Hawks, and the only injury there that I think is worth saying, you'll note that Trae Young is questionable for today. He hasn't missed a game yet. No guarantee he misses even today. So the guys that are sort of sitting as questionable, I'm not going to talk about them, even though I just talked about Trae Young. Vic Krejci might also return, but the only sort of long-term situation here in Atlanta is Larry Nance with that knee fracture. I don't think he returns, but I don't have, they haven't told us about that. The other one that I should have included on that Hawks graphic is Keaton Wallace. If Trae Young does at any point get shut down or has to miss games, he's got 10 games left of 2A eligibility, but that's the only one that really is important there in terms of that level of eligibility. In Boston, they're going to have guys sit out, absolutely, with games down the stretch and back-to-backs, but currently there's nobody who is dealing with a long-term injury. Yes, I know Kristaps Porzingis is dealing with this illness that has cost him almost 2 weeks now, but he's fine. Like, there's not anything that's lingering. He can come back any day. Drew Holiday's got a finger issue, but he's back, and Horford and Tatum and Brown and White, they're going to miss games here down the stretch. We just don't know when it is. Brooklyn gets a little bit more, I'll say it's a little bit more interesting, but they've got the 5-game week. Obviously, we already know Cam Thomas is ruled out today. And there's going to be interesting scenarios here with what happens with Johnson, what happens with Russell, what happens with Thomas on the weekend back-to-back. What do they do with Clowney returning from his injury? How do they manage this week? Who actually plays 5 games? Ziaire Williams, Keon Johnson, Day'Ron Sharpe, my guess, out of the main sort of players, Jalen Wilson as well. But overall, like, no lingering at this point long-term injuries. They do have two-way players who have been rotation players. Tosan Evbuamwan has got 8 games left, and you'll note he has not been playing. They pushed him with big minutes, and they've pulled him back because, hey, we've only got 8 games left, so I would be... This doesn't always work, but I would look at that and go, well, Tosan's got 8 games left. They can convert his contract at points, that's okay, but is that an indication that for the final 2 weeks of the season, that somebody from the rotation just won't play and Tosan will play it all out then? Because why are you holding back? Reece Beekman has 15 games left, the vulture. And I think that once D'Angelo Russell doesn't play, again, this stuff will likely happen 25th of March or 1st of April or something there. Then Beekman will play out as a regular rotation player, remembering that Killian Hayes had a role as a starter, and Beekman could do that, or they could bring in other 10-day guys. But they're the two important ones, Tosan Evbuamwan and Reece Beekman, 8 and 15 games left, respectively. And just, again, we're not rostering them in 10 or 12-team leagues, but for deeper leagues. And you just need to be aware of those players, because there will be a period where we're going, hey, should we be looking at Tosan Evbuamwan here? So you're aware of where we stand on that stuff currently. We go to the Charlotte Hornets, and there's going to be tomfoolery with this team all the way through. Josh Okogie is the only guy who's currently injured. He's dealing with that hamstring. They gave it another 2-week reevaluation. I've got a 25th of March estimated return date. All these dates are estimated. We never know. Look, things can be pushed and extended and whatever. There's going to be issues with Mark Williams, who sat 2 games in a row for some reason. I don't know why that was the case. LaMelo Ball sitting on back-to-backs. It will be very funny to me if Ball is still playing in April and everyone has been screeching about how bad it's been for Ball all season. I don't know if that'll be the case, but it will be very funny. They got 3 two-way guys who play a lot. One of them is KJ Simpson, who's got 13 games left. And one of those players that usually, when LaMelo is down, he starts. But that hasn't always been the case. So we watched that one. Damian Bohr has 8 games left, and he's been playing a lot as well. When he plays, he seems to play like 30 minutes or 25 minutes. He doesn't play like 2 or 3. So they sort of save him and play big chunks. He's not a very good player. He's an interesting assist, steals, threes, volume guy on certain days, but he is a role player that has value as streaming. And the other one is Wendell Moore Jr., who's got 11 games left. He's worse than Simpson and Bohr from a fantasy perspective, but earlier in the year, when JB Bickerstaff was figuring stuff out, he said, hey, we're going to start Wendell Moore. I go, okay, bro, that's not going to happen. But he did, and he could put up okay numbers randomly. And then, of course, he got cut because he's bad. So just another name just to keep one eye on. One eye on the streets, one eye on Wendell Moore Jr. Let's look at the Bulls. At the moment, no long-term injuries because Nikola Vucevic is likely, or he's back today. Lonzo Ball is the other one that I debated putting on there with that wrist issue. That might linger. I just have, and I'll be straight up with you. I started doing all these slides and preparing the graphics for these teams and did it. And then about halfway through, I said, maybe I should just put some of these guys on and label them day to day. Early on, I said, I'm just not going to include these players. So to try and get stuff sped out, because again, when time zones change and daylight saving stuff starts, it puts a squeeze onto my availabilities in terms of times that you don't need to get into all those details, but I was trying to find ways to be efficient to get the stuff out. So I didn't include them initially. I probably should have put Lonzo on there, who's missed a few games there, and that with Lonzo out, you are getting more Trey Jones becoming useful enough to be streamable without being a must roster. But Vooch is returning. What you do with Zach Collins is going to be interesting because you could easily make the argument that he's a drop, and I probably would do that. But I will also, and I don't have a name for this phenomenon, maybe I need to find one. It's for the one where you pick up a fantasy player, Zach Collins, and then you invent any scenario in your head that possibly gives them long-term value. Right? I've seen it happen a million times. So God, they'll just play Zach Collins at the 4. Yeah, he still play 27 minutes. Why don't they just start him at the 4? Because I know there's one of you that have said that, yes? Admit it to yourself. You don't have to admit it to us. You can just admit it to yourself. You're going, yeah, I think that they should do that. And the reason you think they should do that is because you picked up Zach Collins and you like the numbers he's putting up. But in all reality, why would they bench Matas Buzelis to play their third-string center, Zach Collins, out of position for no reason? The logic doesn't always work. It might happen. Maybe the Bulls do that and they put Patrick Williams and Matas Buzelis, their $90 million man and their lottery draft pick, on the bench so that a throw-in salary matching third-string center can start out of position. None of that makes sense, but it's the Bulls, so you never know. As always, if you've got deeper stashability scenarios, games caps, weekly locks, larger benches, you could hold on to Zach Collins and go, hey, well, maybe Vooch doesn't play all the season. That's true. That also might be something that starts occurring in 3-4 weeks. I don't know. Does he even come back here, play 1-2 games and sit? Anything is up at the moment. In general, if you're in playoffs, you can't be waiting for hypotheticals. You go, I need to hit what's happening now. Because if that hypothetical does play out, that's cool, and you might have missed something. But in the interim, there would have been 10, 12, 15 different scenarios that you could have used that roster spot on to get that value back. So even though, I'll never find another Zach Collins. Yeah, maybe. But you also could have used that roster spot to find 17, 70% Zach Collinses and just rostered them all the way through and actually made up that value. And that's to suggest that like no other situation appears like that at any other point, which it very easily could. So I'm ruthless at this point of the year. I'll cut the 10th guy, the 11th guy if I need to, because it is beyond doubt that doing that to get more games in leads to better results. It's not debatable. So just that's how I approach this stuff. Tailor it to your own needs, but that is how I approach it because I think that it gives the majority of people the better chance of winning majority of the time. And that's sort of how I want to approach the stuff that we do. let's go on to the Cleveland Cavaliers, who are pretty clean as well. He had no long-term injuries sitting on this team. They will be aggressively resting guys at times. They will be limiting minutes at times as well. But they've been limiting minutes all season. We're aware of this. We were aware of it before the season. We're aware of it now. It just keeps happening, and it will keep happening moving forward until the end of the season because they are a long way ahead. Today's episode is brought to you by Skims. But not Skims, everybody. Skims for men. Because that is a new product. And you've heard of Skims before, I'm sure. All of you are massive fans of the Kardashian-verse, and you know the things that they're up to. Skims has been around for a long time, but now they've got them for men. And it's quality underwear for men. We're all on the search for something quality to hold on to our private parts, because that is what underwear is, if we break it down to the core principles of it. Skims gives you so many different options. Different cuts, bang, colors, sizes, fabrics. But the one thing they have in common is it's all comfortable. You don't want undies that are uncomfortable. Imagine that. It's one of the worst things in the world. It's not. There are a lot of things that are much worse. But in terms of small minutiae of your everyday, yeah, uncomfortable undies is not something you want to deal with. And Skims helps that. Great selection, great range, unbelievable comfort, and you've been waiting for this moment, honestly, your whole life. So shop Skims Men's at skims.com and at Skims stores. Let them know that we sent you. So after you place your order, you select podcast in the survey, and then you select this show in the drop-down menu that follows. And there's always a gift giving time coming up. So whatever it is, you can, just for nothing, just surprise someone with a gift of Skims Men's. It is the official underwear partner of the NBA, the WNBA, and USA Basketball as well. Okay, what other teams are we up to? We're up to the D's. That's what she said. The Dallas Mavericks, here is where we get into the foolishness, the nonsense, the what the hell is going on here scenario. Paul Washington Jr. I don't know what to make of this. Washington had the ankle injury. He came back, played 15 minutes on the 1st of March, and he has missed 4 games in a row. And he is out again on Monday. And obviously we know this team is not going to go anywhere or make any sort of inroads into anything. I don't think that Washington's season is over, but I've also got no real way of knowing when he is going to return. And when he does return, it has ripple effects. It impacts Kessler Edwards. It impacts Najee Marshall. It impacts Spencer Dinwiddie, Klay Thompson, because Washington will come in and lead the team in shots. He'll play 30-plus minutes. He'll take minutes at the 4 and the 5, and it will impact a lot of guys. I just don't know when it will happen. And until it happens, we just do with what we've got now. The next problem is Kai Jones, who came in, played that one huge game, 34 minutes in his only appearance, got injured apparently in that game, I don't know when that happened, and hasn't played since. He's missed 3 in a row, he's going to be out on Monday for the 4th in a row, and I don't know when he returns. He will be interesting when he returns, but I don't know where we're at with that. Jaden Hardy sprained his ankle. He would have had a pretty good role with Kyrie out, but of course he's injured as well. Same game, I think, that Kyrie got injured. I've got a return about the 21st of March. I think he will have maybe a week or so of really strong value. It'll take a little bit to ramp up, but he could really cook end of season. And then there's the 3 big men, Anthony Davis, Derek Lively, and Daniel Gafford. There is no way in my mind that Daniel Gafford plays this season, none. Grade 3 MCL sprain, has no shot. They said a reevaluation in 2 weeks. Cool. There's just no way. They're also stringing along the Derek Lively and Anthony Davis thing. I don't know why they're doing that. I don't think there's any way that these guys play any meaningful minutes in any fantasy season. Now, sure, if you play Roto and you're going through to the end of April, maybe they come back. But if you're in your playoffs right now, there is no shot Davis plays this week, and then a week after, they have 2 games. So even if he did come back, which would be a miracle if they both came back in a week, you get a 2-game week. So honestly, you're really looking at least 2 wasted weeks for these guys. And again, they could come back at any point. But nothing seems to make any sense that they would return. There's no reason for them to be coming back or pushing it at any point here. So I just think they're done. It is always a risky... Derek Lively, you should have dropped months ago. That's an easy call. But it's a risky call to drop Anthony Davis. Obviously, it's Anthony Davis. But in a lot of cases, it's going to be the correct move for you. They're also in the situation where they have a lot of the 2-way things that we need to pay attention to. Brandon Williams, who yesterday put up huge numbers. He started, and then he left with a hamstring injury, which of course they called soreness. And guess what? They didn't rule him out today. He's questionable, which is, again, that is insane that he would leave with a hamstring injury, not be able to return, and is available to play less than 24 hours later. Honestly, craziness if that is what actually happens. He's got 8 games left, though. So we know that there's the restriction on the two-way. I think he shouldn't play this week. But is it soreness or is it soreness that every other team lies about? If he plays today, it's an unbelievable miracle. I would say it's a 0.01% chance that he plays, but I don't know. Kai Jones has 11 games left on his deal. And Kessler Edwards, who's been playing big minutes and starting, he has 6 games left. So if you're looking at Kessler Edwards and thinking that's a great ad, 6 games. And they're going to have to make those calls of when he plays, and as long as PJ is out, he will play. But I would imagine that when PJ returns, Edwards may take a seat. So the value in that is very, very dependent on what happens with other guys. We go to the Denver Nuggets. Aaron Gordon hurt his calf yesterday. He is out today. Is it actually soreness or tightness, or did he strain it for the 3rd time? I'll say that he's out at least for this week. Honestly, they just need to sit him down for 3 weeks and hopefully it gets right, because you can't just have this happening every week or so. The other one is Julian Strouder, the knee injury. 9th of April I've got as a return date. For him, with these guys out, you get more of Westbrook, more of Christian Brown, you get more of Zeke Naji, and last game, for some reason, you got more Jalen Pickett, although I think most other games it'll be Peyton Watson in those spots. But I really don't think Gordon's going to be playing this week, and Strouder, obviously, we know. But I hope we get some sort of update there on Gordo. In Detroit, there's not a lot going on. There is, in fact, no injuries, and there's no two-way players that need any attention whatsoever. And I know that, yes, I'm not including the guys ruled out for the season, and to me, Jaden Ivey is ruled out for the season. You have not heard a single peep about Jaden Ivey at all since that injury happened, and there's just no way that he's coming back, in my mind, to have any impact in fantasy. In Golden State, Brandon Podziemski ruled out today. I'll call him a day-to-day option. I guess you could look at a stream of Gary Payton in deeper leagues and then Moses Moody in slightly deeper leagues, but they are not anywhere close to being 12-team league options. And then John Kuminga, who we thought might just return straight after the All-Star break. It looks like we might be a month after that. They just said, yeah, he's going to be out the next few days. He's still working for a return. That's a significant ankle injury. I think he's missed 31 games now from it. It's a huge injury. And we worried about how would it all fit? What would happen to Moody? What would happen to Post? What would happen to Podziemski? We don't have to worry about that yet. So and now, the longer you are out, the longer it takes to ramp back up. So if Kuminga is costing you a roster spot through either having him at IL, meaning another injured guy sits on your bench, or Kuminga's injured sitting on your bench, I think you just need to move on. He's not a good enough player from a fantasy perspective, even a real-life perspective, but we care about where the fantasy impact is. He's not good enough to be costing you roster spots. Because a roster spot this week can turn into 6 games. So he is nowhere near good enough to be costing you that. So he is a drop in those particular circumstances. Houston's also got some important injuries. We could be getting Fred VanVleet back today, which is a W. He's had that secondary ankle injury after he stepped on the ref's foot. The first game that he returned, he played 35 minutes. So what likely happens here with Amen Thompson out, if VanVleet returns, it's just a straight switch. Amen's minutes go straight to Fred, and that's it. No one gets a bump, no one gets anything. What it means is that guys like Jabari Smith and Tari Eason do a little bit more work at power forward, and Aaron Holiday has to stay in the rotation as the backup point guard. But that's it really. That would be a straight switch. And given that VanVleet is questionable and the game is on Monday, if VanVleet is ruled out on Monday, you're not going to scurry to try and add somebody to replace on a day where there's 12 games on. So not ideally, overall, the injury to Amen doesn't actually boost anybody, I don't think. Now, Thompson, again, the injury reporting on this is very weird. No structural damage, but out 10 to 14 days with swelling. Cool. All right. That is obviously incongruous. It's not, those two things can't be real. You can't have no structural damage, yet be ruled out for 2 weeks for swelling. You don't know how long swelling will take. It won't take that long unless there is a sprain, which is, of course, structural damage. So it's 10 to 14 days here. I would think that 14 days is reasonable there for Amen. And when he comes back, he will have to then figure out, again, what happens to Smith? What happens to Eason? Where does he fit? Does he go straight back into that starting lineup? Or will Ime Udoka say, hey, I've liked what Smith has brought us here in this spot? I don't know. And always, if we're talking 2 weeks and your playoffs are rolling now, pretty hard to hold. Always the caveat, if you've got a large bench, if you've got an easy matchup, if you've got open IL slots, you hold. And the other one is Reed Shepherd, who maybe could have had an opportunity with Van Vliet and Amen if they were both out, but he's got a fractured thumb and he might return in April. We go to Indiana. A couple of day-to-day guys here. Tyrese Halliburton and TJ McConnell. Hip for Halliburton, ankle for McConnell. I don't really know what happened here with Halliburton's hip. I don't recall seeing the incident, but with him out, you're getting Matherin, Neesmith, and Nembhard all becoming 12-team league options, at least streamable. McConnell would be streamable if he was available, but he's dealing with that ankle problem still. And then that means a little bit more for like Reed Shepherd, not Reed Shepherd, what's his bloody name? Ben Shepherd, the other Shepherd, to jump in there. Today's episode is also brought to you by Wayfair. Your home, it should reflect your style. And with Wayfair, it is easier than ever to make that happen. You could just be looking for a simple refresh, or it might be a big home project. Wayfair has everything that you need in one place. The huge selection makes it easy to find the perfect piece, no matter what space you're looking at, what your style is, or what your budget is. Cozy furniture, stylish decor, kitchen essentials, outdoor must-haves. Wayfair has it all and prices that fit your budget. You can find that perfect piece so easily. Is it a rug? Is it a mug? Is it I can't think of another Dr. Seuss rhyming term to put in there, but it doesn't matter. Whatever your style, whatever you're looking for, Wayfair is going to have so many options for you to choose from as I choke on my own tongue. Head over to wayfair.com and find something that's just your style today. That is WAYFAIR.com. Wayfair, every style, every home. What other possible way could there be to spell Wayfair? I realize as I say that out loud. Because we got to spell it out. How else would you spell it? I guess you could do WAYFARE, which makes no logical sense, but that's got to be it, yeah? Anyway, better to be safe than sorry. Let's talk about the LA Clippers. What do their injury reporting situation look like? There's two guys on there. It's Normie Powell and it's Benny Simmons. Powell is dealing with the hamstring injury. I've got him out until about the 21st of March with the hamstring. That's the second occurrence of that this season. With him out, you're seeing Nick Batum start. You're seeing Chris Dunn play with a higher floor. You're seeing Bogdan Bogdanovic do more, although Bogdan Bogdanovic seems to be a guy that's elevated if Kawhi is out, not as much with Powell, so his value's down. But of course, the Clippers have the best schedule in this time frame. Nobody else plays Tuesday, Wednesday. It is them only, and only 3 teams have 4 quality games. Them, the Nets, and the Bucks this week. So your Bogdanovic's and Dunn and Jones and Batum and Coffey all have elevated value for this particular week, especially the beginning of this week. Ben Simmons is not on the road trip, where hopefully nobody here is holding on to him. We're talking maybe a 16th of March at the earliest return for Simmons, and this is not the back injury, it's a knee injury. It's just, his body just cannot cope with it at this point, and I think that's relatively clear. The Lakers, few injuries obviously on this squad. Dorian Finney-Smith is dealing with an ankle problem. He had been filling in for Rui Hachimura. He'd been deep league fantasy stuff only. Rui is out, at least for this week, with his knee issue. If we had a situation where Rui returns and LeBron is out, which could happen, then Hachimura, even me, I would say, yeah, you want Rui Hachimura because he will get bulk points. Now, he won't do anything else because he never will, but he'll get bulk points, but he's not there. And now you got Jackson Hayes, who's also dealing with a knee injury, and I believe Jackson has been ruled out of today's game already. He is, and he's day-to-day moving forward. So that means we are really, really looking at Jared Vanderbilt as a pretty solid option, and you're going to have to look at Dalton Connect as well as someone who's going to have to play more because they're probably both going to have to start in this position, I would say. The other one you'd look at is Trey Jemison, who's a two-way guy who has 10 games left. Jordan Goodwin is also a two-way guy who has 10 games left, and both of these guys are likely to be in the rotation for the short term, and they could actually be useful streaming options, especially in deeper formats, but you are talking about a real narrow period here of maybe even using Jemison and Goodwin as 12-team emergency guys. But they've got 10 games left. Now, the Lakers are in a different spot to the Mavericks. They can convert one of these guys. I don't think they can do it just yet because of cap stuff, but they will be able to do it and put them onto a full contract. So for one of those guys, and the thing that they want is they want playoff eligibility too. So I would think that Jemison's been so good for them in that backup role that they will convert him and those 10 games won't matter. Goodwin becomes a little bit iffy. They need to cut somebody to do that. So it'll be like a Cam Reddish probably they moved on from, or Alex Len, who they signed and they've realized, yeah, absolutely not. We're not interested in him. He's not good anymore. Let's go to Memphis, and I never know what to make of this team. Santi Aldama had calf soreness. Of course he did. He missed 2 games. He came back. He played 21 minutes. He missed the next one. He's out Monday. I would be very surprised if he plays on Wednesday against Utah. A calf strain should be 3 weeks. We'll see what they end up doing with that. But that would be, I think earliest is the 14th, which is Friday, but don't be surprised if Santi's out for longer. And it is distinctly possible that Jaren returns before Santi does. It's not likely, but it's possible. As for Jaren, they gave him a grade 2 ankle sprain, which is a 4-week injury. Of course, he was dribbling after 2 days because their injury designations are never correct. They never marry up. They're working on Terrence Howard's math, I guess, in terms of injury designation. Numbers don't mean anything. We just make up the scores as we go along. As for Jaren, I guess you just got to wait. I'm keeping my initial time frame on it of about the 25th of March for a return, but he could pop up on Friday. I got no idea because, again, they put out things, and as soon as that injury happened, I said, hey, this team has a history of lying or misleading or incorrectly placing grades onto injuries, so just be aware of it. And it very well could happen again. Luke Kennard is dealing with a back issue, so he's out again Monday. Just watch on Wednesday with Morant in his shoulder, because if Morant is out and Kennard is out, then we're back in the Scottie Pippen business in that particular spot. Let's go to the next team, which is dealing with a lot of guys on the injury report, but none of them that I think are worth elevating into something that's important. You've got Wiggins, Hero, Ware, Robinson, Burks, Huckers, and Haywood Highsmith all listed on the injury report. Okay, cool. What the hell for? Why are we listing everyone every day injured? They've done this whole season, so I'm just going to ignore all of that. Because they're just going to be, he's in, he's out, he's in. They're all going to be all over the place. No point talking about it. The only one that matters here is Little Chungus Nikola Jovic with the hand fracture out into the 31st of March. The big winner from him being out is, nobody? It's Highsmith sometimes, and it's Burks sometimes, and it's Ware a little bit, and then it's Huckers sometimes, and it's Regia sometimes, and it's nothing that you can bank on to have consistent value. So we don't bank on it then. Let's go on to the Milwaukee Bucks. Bobby Portis suspended. That's the only thing that's of real import there. There's Paddy Connaughton, who's been dealing with a calf issue, but he could be back at any point. Also, it doesn't matter. Portis is until the 8th of April is when he is eligible to return, and none of their two-way guys matter at all in terms of fantasy impact and their eligibilities. In Minnesota, we are absolutely 100% completely clean. Not a single person is even listed with a questionable or probable tag at this point. So that has happened multiple times for them this season, but they are completely clean, and their two-way guys don't matter either. We go on to the New Orleans Pelicans, which are a little bit more worth looking at, but most of the guys that are sitting games for them at the moment are through back-to-back rests. And we thought we had it pegged where Olynyk, Brown, McCollum, and Zion would sit, but last time Olynyk played, so cool. Brown, McCollum, and Zion rested the back-to-backs, and that's sort of what we know at this stage. BJ Boston has a stress fracture or stress reaction in his ankle. I honestly don't think that he plays this season. That's a pretty serious injury, but we'll see. He's been out for a long time. I'm glad they took a month to tell us what the problem was, but I don't think he's playing. The two-way guy that's somewhat important here is Jamal Cain. He's been getting minutes in the rotation. He played 11 minutes last game. He's got 11 games left on his contract, and there will be times when he is playing in a larger role, and he'll have a pop-off game, but it is worth noting there is only 11 games left for him on his deal. For the New York Knicks, Jalen Brunson, they gave us the, maybe at least 2 weeks designation, which again, that's at least, and they told us nothing about a grade 1, grade 2, grade 3. It looked pretty serious. It looked to be at least a grade 2. I would think it's 3 to 4 weeks, but I also don't know that. I've got him as an estimated 28th of March return date. Juice McBride is the guy that is starting in his spot. In deeper leagues, you can look at Tyler Kolek and Campaign. But as we saw, McBride didn't do very much in those first 2 games. He's still solid, but they have got a dreadful schedule. And if you need to make cuts to get more games in, because holding a 2-game Juice McBride is not worth it when you can get 6 games into that spot. If you are playing for your life this week, if you are on a bye, you can hold and see what happens. But if you need the production now, McBride is not going to be someone who is worth holding in that spot. Ariel Hukporti is dealing with the knee issue. We've got about a 6th of April return, but with Achua and Robinson both there, it doesn't really matter for Hukporti anymore, unfortunately for him. For Oklahoma City Thunder, the only injury currently there is AJ Mitchell with a toe. He's likely returning in April, but they are otherwise fully healthy. Even Chet is off the injury report for today on a back-to-back, which is incredibly interesting. I don't really know what the purpose of that is. So he's just playing back-to-backs now, I guess. Don't know. Seems that way. But anyway, AJ Mitchell with a toe in April. Orlando is the next team for us to look at. We know Jalen Suggs is out for the year. There's no other injuries listed for them at the moment. The one that I wanted to highlight, because he has had some minutes at times and played a role, is Trevelyan Queen. Yes! He's got 10 games left on his deal, and given that Corey Joseph is a player that played minutes for them, and Mr. Black has had some struggles, and Cole Anthony's had some injuries, Queen, it's just worth just popping in the back of your head that he's only got the 10 games left, but there might be something at some point. I know that's a long bow. Philadelphia, this is where we go, I don't know. Kelly Oubre, after playing, 24 minutes yesterday, they said they were going to limit his minutes, and we played 20 minutes, and then he mysteriously is out with an ankle sprain. Okay. Tyrese Maxey, after the game, Nick Nurse said, okay, Tyrese is questionable for tomorrow. And we're like, that doesn't sound right, but whatever. They also did the same thing with Paul George, by the way. Maxey's out on Monday, so I don't know what the purpose of listing him there. But now we're in no man's land. It is an easy argument to say, hey, I don't think Maxey will play rest of season here because they need to lose games. If to keep that draft pick, he's obviously banged up, finger and back. But why would they say he's questionable? And then rule him out. So I don't know. And their next game on Wednesday is against Toronto. So let's just say there's no chance Tyrese Maxey plays on Wednesday. None. That's not happening. And the other one is Paul George, who's got the groin strain, and it is an injury. He's got a real injury, but is he going to come back at all? The problem they have is that both Maxey and Paul George are subject to the Trae Young player participation policy. Whereas if they don't play and they're not injured and they do an investigation into them, well, they get fined $100,000, which again is, what are you doing? So I don't know how they're going to approach this. It is getting to the stage where you have to start making those decisions about whether they're holdable or not. But I don't know. And then you get into the problem of what do you do with these other players? Because they've got two guys who can have some value here, Alex Reese and Jeff Doughton, who could play some minutes on this team. 12 games left for Reese, 10 games for Doughton. So we need to see how they utilize these guys. Like Lonnie Walker, Justin Edwards, Adem Bona, Jared Butler, Ricky Council. We could easily be looking at them as 12-team guys, but we don't know. Is Yabusele going to play 12 minutes or 30 minutes? Or 25? Is Drummond going to play 10 or 20? He's questionable today with an illness again. It's just a mess. I wouldn't bother with Yabu. I wouldn't bother with Drummond. I don't think that Bona is going to be worth it at this point, nor Lonnie, but it could easily turn out that way. It's just a very, very messy and unknown situation for us. We go to Phoenix Nest, and Bradley Beal out again. Calf injury. It is a back-to-back, so I get that. Played 29 minutes Sunday, and he's out today against Memphis. I don't think that he's droppable because when he's playing, he's putting up pretty good numbers. But this calf, they just are not giving it any time to heal. And I think we're going to get a lot of these little things pop up. Cody Martin has not played for this team after their salary dump of Yusuf Nurkic, dealing with a sports hernia, maybe back end of the week, but I don't think it really matters. And the other one is Monte Morris, who's been dealing with a back issue for quite a while here. I'll say it's day-to-day because they're giving us absolutely zero updates, but I don't think also that it matters at all because he's not really playing. For Portland, Denny Avdia is questionable with the quad issue. He missed 2 games in a row. Him returning, which could be today, we'll see what that does, impacting like a Shaden Sharp. Jeremy Grant is doubtful. He came back, he played 2 games, and now he's doubtful with a knee issue. The Ides of March have struck. I would expect Grant to play fewer than 50% of the remaining games. Rob Williams, I actually don't think he's going to play again this season, but I don't know. I've ruled him out at least for this week. That means that Jabari Walker and Dwop Reith become the deeper league center options. Matisse Thybulle, will he ever play? We haven't really seen any update on him. I think we're talking at least a couple of weeks, but I don't think that he's going to play. And then DeAndre Ayton with the blown out calf. I've got to return end of March. Again, it's serious, that injury. I don't think he returns, but if he is, it's end of March. And for most of you, that's not going to matter for fantasy, which makes it really tough to hold him. It is tough to hold Donovan Clinton because he's been bad as well. And this week, they have a really poor schedule. So if you wanted to move on from someone like Donovan Clingan, it makes sense to do that. They play Wednesday and Sunday. They play Monday with 12 games on, obviously, but then Wednesday and Sunday. So if you need the production now, you move on from guys like that because you move on from Grant, you move on from even Sharp because he's 2 games worth it. Probably not. In the long run, probably not. We go on to Sacramento, where there are two key injuries here, Domantas Sabonis and Malik Monk. Now, Monk missed 3 in a row, but he's actually off the injury report for Monday, so he's returning. Their next games, and only other games this week, are Thursday and Friday. Will Monk play on the back-to-back? Don't know, but he is back. If you wanted to drop Keon Ellis, the time would be now, because you probably wouldn't start him on Monday. They're off Tuesday, Wednesday, and then you've got a Thursday, Friday back-to-back, which, again, that's fine, that's useful. But no one will rush to add Keon for 2 days of 0 games. Sabonis is out Monday. I think that there's no way he plays Thursday, Friday. So you might get 1 game out of him this week, meaning you might get 2 good games out of Valanciunas. You might get 3 also. But also, if you wanted to use Valanciunas' roster spot after Monday to get 6 games in from that slot, instead of maybe one start from Valanciunas, you might get 2, but maybe 1, then that move would make sense as well. It doesn't appear like Sabonis is going to be out long-term past this week, but if you wanted to be proactive, use JV on Monday, drop him to get Tuesday, Wednesday, some extra games in, and then if Sabonis is back on, say, Thursday or Friday, sometimes you need to make those calls. It don't always work, but being proactive there can, because if you wait until Sabonis is called back in and then you get the notification Thursday morning that Sabonis is playing Thursday, you've wasted Valanciunas' roster spot for 2 days for zeros. I'm not telling you to drop him, but I'm saying it's something you need to think about when trying to work out the probabilities of all this. Because if Sabonis is back, say, Friday, 1 starting game of Valanciunas across 3 days is not worth the hold. It's just not in that spot. For San Antonio, there's always these whispers about De'Aaron Fox having this season-ending finger surgery, and I think he probably will at some point, but I think we're probably a few weeks away. He has been really struggling, though. Played just 27 minutes in 2 of the last 3 games. And now Steph Castle popped up as a questionable tag with a shoulder issue, which has bothered him a few times as well. They are, I think, moving into a real tank shutdown period in the next 3 weeks. Jeremy Sohan is doubtful with a calf issue, so let's say he's day-to-day. And then Charlie Bassey with the knee bone bruise, which they've given no real update on recently. He's missed 7 in a row. I actually don't think he's going to come back this season. I think we're going to have moments of Branham and Wesley and Mamakhelishvili being 12-team options, maybe from like the 25th onwards. But they are winding stuff down in San Antonio. In Toronto, there's a lot of garbage going on here. We saw them rest quickly Barrett and who's the other one? Quickly Barrett, Pirtle, but not Barnes. And then Pirtle's resting again on Monday because it's against the Wizards. Now their schedule is telling us they're going to do a lot of this. Washington Monday, Philadelphia Wednesday, Utah Friday, Portland Sunday. Get ready for a lot of stuff going on. John Mobo is probably out this week with a nose fracture. Grade A Dick is out with the knee issue, probably this week and maybe next week. Jacoby Walter hurt his quad. They're calling it a quad strain. I don't expect that he's back in the next week. And then Ochai Agbaji with his ankle, which seems relatively serious. I've got Agbaji and Walter out till about the 23rd of March. Jared Rhoden's been playing 20-plus minutes a night. He's only got 9 games left. But in the short term, Rhoden, AJ Lawson, by the way, AJ Lawson can play every game this season. He's got all the games left that he can play, but Rhoden's got only 9 left. So they are guys who are getting playing time. The other one to watch is Colin Castleton, who's played 24 minutes in each of the 23 and 26, the last 2 games. He's got 3 games worth of action left on a 10-day contract, but they can give him a second 10-day after that. So he has been deeply usable while Mobo and Pirtle have been resting. So we just keep an eye on that. The other guy to watch is Orlando Robinson and Jamal Shed, but they are profiling as a team that's going to get very messy. Speaking of messy, the Utah Jazz. They had a terrible week, much like the Raptors have got this week. But this coming week for them is not that bad. Boston, Memphis, Toronto, that's going to be all hands on deck to rest, and then Minnesota Sunday. So all these guys who, Markkanen and Collins are listed questionable for Monday against Boston. Wow, what a shock. And Sexton and Kessler are off the injury report. I would expect that these guys play a game or 2 this week and not play on Friday. But it's becoming increasingly impossible to hold on. Then Keontae George pops up with a foot contusion. He's out on Monday. So is he going to be part of the end-of-season shenanigans now as well? The only guy I feel really comfortable with is Kyle Filipowski. Because when he's playing 25, he's a top 100 guy easy. Collier's not really doing that. Like, we're not relying upon Zhuzhang or Sensabaugh or KJ Martin. And there's too much uncertainty. It's very hard to have a guy on your roster and goes 27 one day, 12 the next day, and you don't know when it happens. They are single-day stream situations where you can try and plan it against bad opponents. Eventually, the bad opponent thing won't matter. They'll just sit these guys down. But what they have done with Markkanen in the past and in Collins, they don't tell you. They don't tell you that they're done for the year until about 4 weeks afterwards. You've got to look to see, look, if Larry Markkanen, for instance, doesn't play a game this week, then he's done. But I think he'll play 1 or 2, and then you maybe after that will be done. But I don't know, because it is incredibly difficult to figure that out. Micah Potter, he's got 11 games left. Now, he's had some interesting games during the season. 11 games left. We'll see when they use those. I would expect he doesn't play much this week, and then maybe down the stretch he's able to have some sort of a role. The last team we look at is the Washington Wizards, the worst team in the NBA. Richaun Holmes is dealing with this. We know that Middleton and Smart are out. They're going to rest back-to-backs. There's going to be some shenanigans at some point with this team as well, especially if they win a couple that they shouldn't. We'll see. But at the moment, they've got enough of a buffer to hold off of that. Richaun Holmes is dealing with this knee issue. I'm expecting he sits Tuesday because it's back-to-back, then plays... sits Monday, then plays Tuesday maybe. And when he's out, Tristan Vukcevic becomes an interesting option. Vukcevic can play every game rest of season, so we're okay with that. But in terms of rostering him, you can't until you see him in a solid role rest of season. And we're not going to be looking at that. And I honestly just don't think that Malcolm Brogdon is returning. But again, we just hear nothing about that. It's like, hey, he sprained his ankle before the break. Okay. Anything else on that? Nah. Don't bother asking, not telling you. And that's a 30-team injury update. Again, happy birthday to Terrence Howard. Happy birthday to Mathematics. And happy birthday to you if it's your birthday today for some reason. Not for some reason. It would be your birthday because that was the anniversary of the day you were born. Give a thumb up on the video. Double bang it, of course. And then remember, while it might be frustrating trying to deal with all these things, we're doing our best. And as with this and in any other point in life, sometimes we make mistakes. And it's okay to work on those, do better at them, and go on to the next thing. Move forward as best you can. Because you're never going to be perfect. I'm never going to be perfect. You've got to understand how to learn from it. And don't beat yourself up about it. Guys, we are done here. Thank you so much for listening, everyone. See ya.